welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about some of my favourite books that I've read so far this year. According to Goodreads, I've read 77, which probably isn't accurate. Sometimes I can't find the books that I read on Goodreads, and I know I read one book. I finished a book this year that I'd started previously, so that one doesn't count. So I'm not really sure how many books I have actually read, but I've picked 5 that I wanted to talk to you about. The first of those is The Wreck by Lizzie Stewart. This is about 2 women, Francesca and Charlotte. They met at university. They had that kind of friendship where there's always a little bit of tension. They come from kind of different social circles, and so, you know, Charlotte is always a little bit jealous of Francesca. Francesca's always a little bit jealous of Charlotte. So it's a little bit toxic, but not anything too dramatic. But then, after they've left university and they've kind of fallen out of touch, Francesca contacts Charlotte and tells her that she and her partner, who was one of Charlotte's friends at university, have purchased this remote country home, and they invite Charlotte and her partner to live with them, essentially. It's sort of pitched as a house share thing. We can have a section of the house each. We wouldn't even have to see each other very much, but it becomes this really perfect, idyllic existence, almost bohemian, where they are just kind of drinking and lazing around, and Charlotte's partner is going off to work, and Francesca's partner's going off to work, and Francesca's going off to work, and they're all doing their things, but then they all come together again in this place, and it seems like it's going to be perfect, but then something happens that kind of destroys the whole atmosphere, and you know what's going to happen. Like, it's not predictable in a bad way, but you can tell where it's going to go. You don't know who's going to be involved, but you know what's going to happen. I think my favourite thing about the way Lizzie Stewart writes books, and this was true as well of her previous book, she kind of combines sort of this graphic novel style like this with pages of prose like this, and then some illustrations. What do they call it? It's an illustrated novel, they call it, but I'm more tempted to call it a graphic novel. I think that calling it an illustrated novel is almost like obfuscating what it is to make it sound more, I don't know, literary, I guess, than a graphic novel. But it is a graphic novel. It's beautifully illustrated. It's beautifully told. It's incredibly tense. And like I said, even though you know what's going to happen, you can't really stop yourself from turning the pages and figuring out when it's going to happen and who it's going to be with. And I thought it was really compelling, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I want to talk about is Milkman by Anna Burns. This was the Man Booker Prize winner in 2018. So I probably got it around then, or the next year maybe, I don't know. I've had it for a while, and I just sat down to read it earlier this year. And I was really, really impressed with it, which obviously that's not a surprising thing to say considering it won such a prestigious award. This follows an 18-year-old girl. We don't get her name. We don't really get names in this book. She is living in Northern Ireland at the height of the Troubles, and she's being stalked by an older man that they call Milkman. And because of the way this society operates, people in the little town, in this little community, think that she's having an affair with him, even though they've only met twice and she wants nothing to do with him and he makes her really uncomfortable. The rumour's already gone around, everybody's already saying it. She has a boyfriend, they don't really know that she has a boyfriend, but they know that he's married, and why are you tearing their family apart? So all of these rumours are going around, and also, as I said, it's at the height of the Troubles, and so there's that undercurrent of kind of like sectarian conflict and violence going throughout the whole book. I really loved this. I've seen some really, really negative responses to this book, which I completely understand. This will be made, it would be sort of a make or break kind of book for you. It will be the prose that will do it, the way that it's written. It's kind of stream of consciousness, to the point where she starts talking about one thing and then just goes off. And it's not necessarily, it is a tangent, but it's always related to something that she's just said, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, and you just have to trust that she's going to bring it back to the point that she was making initially, which she always does. But I can imagine that for lots of readers that would be kind of a frustrating experience, and maybe you just want her to get to the point. But I think actually it's really important, you know, the people around her don't really understand her. She is kind of a different person. Her brain works differently to the way their brains work, and they don't like that. They don't accept that. And so it wouldn't make sense if the narrative was told in a really traditional way, because she's not a traditional person. I really enjoyed this. Again, I don't think that my praise is that shocking when you consider how highly praised it obviously has been. But I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, and I loved it. And I think the prose was the thing that really got me. So I'd really recommend Milkman if you think that kind of prose is your kind of thing. The next book, and I won't say too much about this because I've heard everybody talk about this. It's very, very popular. This is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a book from the 90s that has kind of had a bit of a resurgence recently. I don't really know why. I picked this up again a few years ago, very, very cheaply in a shop, and then have just had it on my shelf since then. This is about a group of people who are kept in a bunker under the ground. They're guarded by soldiers. They don't know why they're there. They don't know how long they've been there. And the main character is the only child in the group, so it's 39 women and 1 girl. And because she doesn't remember life outside of this bunker, she has a very different perspective on it to everybody else. Kind of similar to the previous book, although this came out before it. She's very different to the other women, the other people in the bunker. Her brain works differently, so some of them don't really like her because of that. But because her experience is unique, she has a really unique perspective on what's happening to them. I really love this. Like I said, I won't say much more than that. Loads of people have spoken about it. You could probably find hundreds of reviews of it on YouTube if you're more interested in a bit more information, but I thought this was really, really brilliant. The next 2 books are from 2 different series. One of them is a series I've just started this year, and then the other one is a series I started years ago and have only just recently continued with. So the first I want to talk about, this is Abaddon's Gate. This is book 3 of The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. I started reading The Expanse this year. I had the first book, Leviathan Wakes, on my shelf again for years, and then just picked it up a few months ago and loved it so much. I've now got the next 2 books. I'm working my way through the short stories as well. This is the 3rd book in the series. I wouldn't say it's my favourite. I think the 2nd book is my favourite. But if you don't know, this is a space opera. It's very political. It's about a guy called James Holden, who is kind of just a normal guy in the first book, and he gets embroiled in this mystery surrounding a missing young woman, and there's a detective who gets involved, and it's very there's a lot going on. There are a lot of characters, but it never feels dense, which it easily could. And when we get to the little expositional parts, it never feels complicated. It's complex, but it's not complicated. I never feel like I'm having things explained to me too much. I think the characters are great. The relationships between them are great. I actually started watching the show as well, which I don't think is bad by any means, but something that really frustrated me was that there was a lot of added drama for the sake of it. Like, all the characters are just arguing all the time, and they're not really like that in the book. They're all friends and they like each other, which is something that I really appreciate about the book. I don't know if I'm selling this to you. I don't really know how to sell it to you, but I'm really enjoying it. I don't normally read science fiction like this, which is kind of, action heavy and lots of quipping and all of that kind of stuff, but I'm really enjoying it. I think it's very, very well done, and The Expanse. Who knew I'd like The Expanse? The next book, right, I'm a big Stephen King fan, and a few years ago I started reading The Dark Tower, and I read the first 4 books and then just stopped. I don't know why. I was really enjoying the series. I just stopped. And then earlier this year I read the book that came out most recently, but actually fits in between books 4 and books 4 and 5, which is The Wind Through the Keyhole, and I really enjoyed it. So that kind of got me back into it. So then earlier this week I read Black House, which is by Stephen King and Peter Straub, and that's the 2nd book in the Talisman trilogy. The 3rd book's coming out in September, I think, which is why I'm trying to catch up with the Dark Tower series, because they all link together. So to that end, this week I've also read Walls of the Kaya, which is the 5th book in the Dark Tower series. Look at this, 780 pages I read over the last 3 days. I love this so much. I'm a big Stephen King fan, like I said. I understand why people are not fans of Stephen King. I completely get it. Especially this is what lots of people will say, is that he writes too much. It's too much going on. He just waffles, and it is a lot of waffle, to be honest. If you don't know, The Dark Tower is kind of a fantasy, science fiction, Western horror series that follows a gunslinger called Roland. He's on a quest to the Dark Tower. That's the simplest way of explaining it. This one, Wolves of the Kyre, is the 5th book, and it's essentially, like I said, it's a Western. It's essentially like Magnificent Seven, any of those kinds of Westerns where a small town is being targeted by mysterious villains who are going to come in and they need gunslingers to come and save them. I loved this. I loved it so much, and I don't understand why I just stopped reading the series. I don't know what happened, and I'm enjoying it so much that I'm currently I hit myself in the face 3/4 of the way through Song of Susanna, which is the 6th book, and I started that this morning, so I'll probably finish that this evening. It's much shorter. It's only 400 pages. It looks bigger. I just have such a thing about Stephen King. I don't know what it is. This especially, I think it's so evocative, and he feels, even though yes, there's a lot of words, he does waffle. I feel like he's in control of it. I feel like he knows what he's doing. I trust him, and I really hope that that trust isn't misplaced, to be honest. So those are some of the books that I've been enjoying this year. I think I've now got some time off work because I work in a school, so it's the summer holidays. I only get 5 weeks, unlike some people who get 6. But there's a few things that I want to read. Like I said, I'm trying to get to the end of the Dark Tower series before the 3rd book in the Talisman trilogy comes out. So I've got a quarter of this and then the 7th book to go. I'd like to finish Gormenghast. I spoke about this in a previous video. I'm on the final book in the trilogy, which is Titus Alone. That starts there. So hopefully I can get that done. It's not very long, actually, so I should be able to get that done. I want to continue with The Expanse. Not very far into that. It's 9 books. I've only read 3 of them. That's my other plan. But I don't know. I'd quite like to read a big classic over the summer. I've had my eye on War and Peace for a while. I've had a nice copy of War and Peace on my shelf for a really long time that I haven't read. But I've also got, I've got Moby Dick. I've got Don Quixote. But I'd like to do a big classic over the summer. Other than that, really, I need to stop making plans that involve me buying more books for series. And also, I've got lots of books on my shelf that I still haven't read, and I think maybe I should read some of those books and then get rid of them. Clear some space for other books. But I haven't really decided yet on that. So I don't really have lots of plans for what I'm going to read for the summer, but I've got 4 more weeks. So I should hopefully be able to make some good progress on those books. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what books you've really enjoyed this year. Maybe you will have read the same as me, or maybe you can give me some inspiration on what I should read over the summer. Thanks for watching.